But nonetheless, I'm happy to have made this video, because if you've been using FabFilter Pro L2, guaranteed you've been doing it wrong like I have. For those of you who use FabFilter Pro L2, the attack setting is such a weird one because of the way it's been documented. And I'm going to say it here. I got it wrong. I have been completely and utterly wrong about how the attack setting works on FabFilter Pro L2. And so many other people have been completely and utterly wrong about it because it is a very vague description. However, Jonathan Jeter got it perfectly right. Jonathan Jeter got it perfectly right, and he has the tests to prove it. I've set up the tests here in my DAW to show it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through some of the key points in his article, which you can read yourself in the description below. But then I've got everything set up here because he's only got screenshots there. I'm going to actually show you in action how that attack setting works. So I felt, you know what? I got to own up to it, but also I feel like that article really deserves a lot more attention. So I'm going to reiterate that here in the video so people who are searching on YouTube can see how exactly that attack time works, because I was so wrong about it. And it's really weird. And this is why it's really weird. FabFilter are incredible at documenting their products. However, for this particular one setting, they've lapsed on it a little bit. And if they have documented exactly in this same granularity how it operates, then link me to it, because I don't know where the hell I missed it. So let's go through the article and then I'll show you the test. So yeah, we can just enjoy learning something new alongside me, because I've been so wrong about how the attack time actually works on this FabFilter Pro L2. I'm genuinely embarrassed. Alright, so FabFilter Pro L2 is one of the most popular limiters in use today. Yeah, well, it is. It definitely is. The attack knob is the most confusing part of the plugin. It's tempting to assume function akin to the attack time of a traditional compressor, where it controls the slope of the gain reduction, and making it longer allows more transient to pass through. Okay, well, making an attack time longer doesn't necessarily allow more transient to pass through in a traditional sense. It just changes the timing between when that transient passes the threshold and when the maximum gain reduction is achieved. So it's sort of, it is reducing transients, just depends how long it takes to achieve that maximum gain reduction in a traditional sense. But in this, but he's right. Why is it labeled attack time? Because when I'm thinking of a dynamics processor, I'm thinking of it in a traditional concept, the amount of time it takes to reach its maximum point of gain reduction, which it isn't in this plugin. So he makes a point. Why FabFilter have you named it attack time? Attack time. A bit of critical thinking suggests that this can be the case, though. If more transient did pass through, how would the limiter still limit at the ceiling? How would it effectively limit at all? He's right here again. Now, I'll be honest, I've sort of thought about that, but I've just thought ignorance is bliss and haven't looked deeper into it, and he has. And respect to you, because that was a bit silly on my behalf in the past. Instead, the attack time is a crossover point, a digital fork in the road. Okay, this is where it starts to get interesting. FabFilter Pro L2 contains two limiting stages, one for shorter transients and one for sustained peaks. This is clearly explained in the documentation, and it makes sense in practice. He says it's clearly explained in the documentation, but then he goes, FabFilter documentation hints at this. The attack and release knobs control how quickly and heavily the release stage sets in. Shorter attack times will allow the release stage to set in sooner. Longer release times will cause it to have more effect. I don't think that's clearly explained. Once we look into it, it makes a lot of sense, but it's a bit ambiguous. And he says that. He goes, that's vague and confusing. None of my colleagues or students, not one, have correctly understood the mechanics of the plugin from reading the description. I didn't. He's right. Who the hell fucking understands that? It just is so vague. And he goes, the attack, in fact, governs Pro L2's determination of which peaks are considered transients and which are considered sustained. So basically, if the transient is shorter than the attack time, it'll be treated like a peak and released instantly. Okay, so it'll come up and down and boom, it's out of your way. And then if any transient is longer than the attack time, it will be considered as a sustained transient, and then the release time will actually kick in and it'll slowly tail off. Interesting. So basically that attack time is, like he said in the start of this, he goes, the attack time is a crossover point, a digital fork in the road. So the attack time basically tells the limiter how to interact in two different ways. So he's right in what he said in the start of setting this up. The attack time is a crossover point. It is a digital fork in the road, and how they probably should have written it in the manual. Okay, if a transient is shorter than the attack time, the limiter is going to step out of the way. It's not going to ride out the release. It's just going to come in, deal with a peak, and fuck off. That's what they should have written. And then they should have written as well, if the transient is longer than the given attack time, we're going to use the sustained portion of the limiting where we're going to use the release time to ride that out. Fair enough. It's too fucking loud. You know, we use that release just to control it, make sure we don't get clipping and shit going over. It makes sense. It's so good. All right, so I've got this all set up here. I've got a 440 hertz sine wave pulse playing for 10 milliseconds at a time. Every second on loop. It's got a negative 20 decibel peak level, so anything over 20, it'll start to limit. Now, what I've got is I've got the attack time set to 10 seconds, the release time set to 10 seconds. Let's see if that release of the limiter happens or not. There you go. Not happening. See? See how that works? Move this release time. Nothing happens, all right? Now let's try something else. Let's actually bring this attack. Let's bring this attack super fast. So it's 0 milliseconds. It should kick in straight away. Let's see if that release stage is engaged. Boom. See that? Wonderful. I love this. I love this. This is such a new sort of thing. Now let's make this attack time slower. Okay. So at about 100, let's say 90 milliseconds, which is 9 times longer than that transient that's coming in. Let's see. Do we go back to where we started, where it's just doing that peak and then no release stage? Okay, so this is where it gets a bit interesting. So it's not quite slow enough. See, this is where this is something like in my test before doing this video. What I found was that it only it will still engage the release time if the body of that, like if there's body of the signal that is longer than the peak of the signal. So it is still two stages. It's not completely one or the other. It is basically how much of that peak sits under the attack time. We're going to treat that immediately. No release, just fuck it off. So we limit it, and how much of that signal is sitting over the threshold, but is a longer sustained transient or a longer signal than the attack time. How much of that signal sustains for longer than the given attack time, and that's what we're going to do the sustained release on. So it is working in two stages. It's actually very interesting. So I want you guys to go read the article because he gets a bit more granular about it than I have in this video, but nonetheless, I'm happy to have made this video because if you've been using FabFilter Pro L2, guaranteed you've been doing it wrong like I have, and I'm happy that I could articulate this or just even learn alongside with you because I literally just read this morning, and I'm happy for that because that is just, it's bonkers. It's bonkers. All right, guys, until next time, take care.